American Monetary Systems, Chapter 1. Early Colonies and Greshams Law. Early colonists were lured to the Americas by companies that were setting out in hopes of striking it rich quick in the New World by finding gold. Unfortunately for them, there was no gold to be found like what the Spanish found earlier in the South Americas. Trade was minimal, and eventually the companies in Virginia were able to turn a profit with a cash crop of tobacco. The colonies would continue to grow over the next 60 years. Boston and New York would be founded in the 1620s and 30s. It would become one of the largest trading posts in the early Americas. Trade would take many forms during the beginning, with beaver furs and wampa being used in the north to trade with Indians. Fish and corn were also used in the mid-colonies, and rice was used in South Carolina at one time, and the most commonly and widespread commodity currency was tobacco. Receipts were 100% backed by the tobacco in the warehouses, with 1 pound of tobacco being the base unit. The colonies were mostly producers of raw materials and had very little capacity for refining their own goods. The northern colonies would produce fish, furs, lumber, and the mid-colonies, or the breadbasket, would supply foodstuffs, cattle, grain, lumber, and iron, while southern colonies produced tobacco, wheat, rice, and cotton. The colonies exported raw materials to England, and England would send back factory-made industrial goods. Over time, trade would grow, with an emphasis on trade preferences with England. This did not keep the colonies from trading with the West Indies and Latin America. This brought in many different types of coins into America. Some of the most common were the French crown, livre, and the most commonly and most wide used during the time period, the Spanish dollar. The colonies were an outpost of Britain and used the pence, shilling, and pound. However, England prohibited the export of specie to the colonies and denied the colonies the right to mint their own. What is specie? It is simply a valuable metal-based coin, i.e. gold and silver, or lesser valuable metal. The Spanish dollar was the most commonly used among the colonies, as gold and silver in any form are perfectly capable of serving as money, if not prohibited by a government. This continued in America until 1857, when foreign coins were outlawed in the United States. The Spanish dollar was 380 grams of pure silver and mostly came through trade with the West Indies and Latin America. The dollar was divided into pieces of eights, or bits, each consisting of 1/8 of a dollar. The Spanish dollar was the least debased currency of its time, and thus incredibly reliable. The English currency shilling, defined as equal to 86 pure troy ounces of silver, would have exchanged at a rate of 4 1/2 equal to 1 Spanish dollar. And now here's where we interrupt our story with a little and simple theory known as Gresham's Law. Bad money drives out good. So what does this mean? If a government overvalues a certain currency, it will become the money of choice, and the undervalued will shrink and disappear from public use into hordes or exit the country. In the early years, every colony practiced its own form of mercantilism. Each colony sought out to attract the most specie and trade to its region as possible. And in 1642, the Massachusetts colony, by government decree, began exchanging 1 Spanish dollar for 5 shillings in an effort to attract more Spanish dollars and subsidize Massachusetts exports. Soon Connecticut and other colonies adopted the same practice, each upping the ante in an effort to gain the advantage over the others. This is the equivalent of what China has done for the past decade in an effort to continue being the world's greatest exporter. The end result of the arms race of devaluation was a rapid increase in the units of accounting and an inflation of domestic prices that would bring an end to the temporary export stimulus. And Gresham's Law would take effect. In this case, the bad money, or dollars, in this case being overvalued, would push out the shillings, the good money, being undervalued. The English would put an end to this inflationary monster in 1707. Our next video will cover how the colonies discovered a much more potent and inflationary tool that would almost take the colonies' trade to a standstill. This has been Money Recall, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe so that YouTube understands that you enjoyed this content.